I'm Dave.
And I'm Andrew. And together we are the IB English guys. We are IB English teachers, we're IB English examiners, we're teaching partners, and we'd like to give students some manageable tips to help them excel and master the IB. Today we're talking about the individual oral, and specifically, Mr. Giles, what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about structure. We're going to talk about organizational patterns and systems that can help you give your individual oral a really clear structure. It's so important.
Yeah, something that's not structured is going to be all over the place, and you and the examiner will be confused.
So what's the first thing we want to consider here?
Well, we've talked about many times, Mr. Giles, and I'm sure our viewers know that the global issue is the backbone, but now it's time to give that backbone a complete skeleton and give this IO life. You liked that, didn't you?
We like that.
Right? So the structure is your skeleton, and if you have a strong, powerful skeleton, then you can deliver a really clear individual oral.
Good. Okay, so there's three key benefits, I think, to having a structure that I just want to briefly mention. The first one is that it reduces your anxiety. If you have a plan and you know where you're headed, you'll definitely feel in control of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and let's face it, we understand that students are nervous when they deliver the individual oral, but we have to try to calm down and really deliver and be confident in our knowledge.
The second benefit is it helps the listener. I can't emphasize this enough. If the listener understands your structure, understands where you're going, then again, they can concentrate on the ideas. And remember to signpost. We'll talk about that more at the end of the video.
Can I maybe think about you're going on a journey and the examiner has never been to this place before. Obviously, if the examiner can see the road signs as he's traveling on this pathway, oh, now we're going to talk about this. Those signs are helpful, and we highly recommend that you use those.
That's good. And then the last thing is just when you have a structure, it helps to create that balance that you're looking for. You've heard that word a lot if you've watched our videos. You want to make sure you're balanced between text 1 and text 2, but also balanced between discussing the extract and discussing the work as a whole.
And actually, you'll see when we talk about the criteria in subsequent videos, lack of balance actually will impact A and B for the criteria as well, but that's for another video.
Yeah. So I want to define two things before we start and show you a couple of different models. The first, there's two terms that I think are useful. When you are talking about the extract and when you're doing the close reading of the extract, we call that the zoom in.
Okay, so you're zooming into the extract, you've ripped that page out of the book, you've ripped that extract out of the non-literary body of work, and you're talking about that extract in great detail. Zoom in.
Yeah. The second term is when you're talking about the entire novel or text as a whole, that's called the zoom out.
So again, you've ripped the page out, that's your extract. Now we have to put the page back into the novel and talk about how that page, that extract, interacts with the global issue throughout the text.
So we're going to give you three models, three models you might choose from. There's probably other ones you could choose, but just to keep it simple, we've just chosen three. So the first is option A. This is where you have the introduction, and then you follow that with the zoom in of text 1, and then the zoom out for text 1. Then you shift to the zoom in for text 2, and then the zoom out for text 2, followed by your conclusion. What do we like about that model?
Well, I like that model because it allows you to use the extract right away, and then you can talk about, hey, this is a really pivotal moment in the novel where we see this important global issue. Perhaps it's police brutality or the abuse of power. And then you zoom out and say, hey, we see this global issue elsewhere in the novel. We see it in chapter 4 when da-da-da-da-da. We see it in chapter 9, da-da-da-da-da. So you kind of start with the extract and you really nail down your global issue. Then you come wide and you talk about where else you see that throughout the text.
Yeah, I can picture that. So the second option is the opposite. This is where you have your introduction followed by the zoom out for text 1. So you're going wide first, and then you zoom in on your extract, and then you do the same for text 2. You zoom out first, and then you zoom in. What do we like about that?
Well, I think that's really just the opposite. Perhaps, I'm thinking of a novel that I enjoyed, God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. If you wanted to talk about police brutality, you might want to start by saying, we see this, it's so important to Arundhati Roy. It's here, and we see it here. But today I really want to zoom in and talk about it right here. So it kind of gives you that more holistic approach first, Mr. Giles, then it lets you go into the extract.
Yeah, and just remember, all of this is through the lens of the global issue, like as you've been saying. I think that's important.
What's the third option? I think there's one more left.
There's one more. It's option C, and it's more of a blended approach. And this is more integrated, where you're actually zooming in on your extract, and then you're periodically going wide and looking at the zooming out and looking at the text as a whole. So you kind of do a little bit of an integrated zoom in and zoom out, and you're going back and forth in that way. It's more sophisticated and it's more integrated.
It doesn't mean it's better though. I think it's just for students who really enjoy just looking, back and forth for a prolonged period of time. If you're someone who likes chunks of information, maybe, zoom in, zoom out. Maybe the other two methods are better for you.
Yeah, and I think you have to remember, and if you watch our zoom out video, we'll talk about this, but when you show an understanding of the work, it's not just places in the novel where we see the global issue, but it's also that you show an understanding of that author's craft and how that author operates. So that might be something to consider.
All right, Giles, what do you say we give a quick overview and a recap of this video?
I think that's good. Hopefully you see some structure to these videos too, because we also need to have a plan. So just remember that your bullet point outline is going to help you with your structure. So use that outline to sort of mirror one of these options so that you very clearly know when you're zooming in, when you're zooming out, and you can articulate that. What else do we want to consider besides that?
Well, I think we definitely have to remember to be strict with time. And when you think about the individual oral as a 10-minute assessment, I think, Giles, you and I have I think we're in agreement of what to do. I think your introduction would be 1 minute. I think your first zoom in for text 2 would be 2 minutes. I think your zoom out for text 1 would be 2 minutes. I think your zoom in for text 2 would be 2 minutes. And I think your zoom out for text 2 would be 2 minutes. And of course, followed by a 1 minute conclusion for a total of
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
And again, these sound strict, but again, this is our ballpark, and I think it's good to keep that in your mind so that you keep that balance. Really important. The last thing to consider, I can't emphasize enough, because the examiner is not going to be, they don't have your structure on paper necessarily. So you want to keep in mind that you need to signpost and use transitions. What does that mean?
Well, again, if you look down underneath this video, you'll see a link to some great signposting. Again, these are roadmaps and sentence stems. Now I would like to talk about text 1 in great detail. Now I'd like to talk about the body of work as a whole. Before we move on, let's consider, right? So these are just phrases and stems that really help the examiner. They are signs on this sometimes mysterious path.
That's right. Okay, we got skeletons, journeys, all kinds of things trying to spice this structure talk up, but hopefully it's giving you some good ideas that will help you make your plan for your I.O.
Folks, as always, if you like this content, subscribe. If there are other topics you want to hear about, let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye, guys.